What was your first podcast? Like, what got you into it?
My very first podcast was I did a podcast with my friend Kurt, and it was called we called it "It's Been Done" because he had a very morose sense of humor, and I don't know if morose really is the word to describe it, but he we'll say he was a bit of a downer.
Okay. All right. I know the type. Yes.
And so, I it was really like pulling teeth just to even get him to do the idea. And of course, like, he's one of those guys where it's a little, he's very funny. Like, seriously, one of the most naturally funny people I know, but also he is extremely pessimistic, right?
Right.
And so every idea we would discuss, we would ultimately land on it's been done.
Okay. All right. I like that.
No, it's not interesting or original. We're wasting our time, right? I was like, fuck it. We'll just call it "It's Been Done." And we would record it in the basement of the guy we would buy weed from, who also was our supervisor at our help desk job.
Was that like an automatic hot box too? Were you just sitting there like in just a cloud of smoke going, it's been done.
Yeah, pretty much. And we would get, and what we would do is, he would have the guy, his house, he would have a drum set, because he would record music down there. Right. So
this is your manager, weed seller, drummer. Like, what else is going on in this guy's house?
There was a cat who was like barely alive.
Oh, I married into two cats that lived to be 20, but they died at 18. Like, literally they were just ghosts for 2 years in the house, and they you wouldn't even realize it, and all of a sudden they'd be behind you, and they'd be like, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
I thought you were dead already.
I was like, I stopped feeding you years ago. How are you still alive?
That is weird how cats are like that, because they get to a point where like, why aren't you dead yet?
Well, yeah, you don't. Well, I think the simplest way to put it is you own a dog.
Yeah.
And cats own you. Like, that's how it is. Like, cats are on their own time. Like, they have no, like, they don't want to be petted. They're like, good, I don't need to be around you right now.
Yeah.
Where dogs are like, hey, what's going on? You could lock a dog in a closet for like 2 days, and you open the door and he looks at you like, where have you been? You're my best friend. Like, the cat would be like, fuck you.
Yeah. I wonder what that says about like people who are like cat people versus dog people. Like, I feel like, because the thing with me is like, when I think about cats, I'm like, I fucking hate cats, because of the way they are, I'm like, I want to be adored,
Okay.
Like, I want my pet to want to like me, but the cat, it's like, oh, the cat thinks it's better than me. I'm like, fuck you. I pay the bills in this house.
I think it's just people, though. I think it's the same. What cracks me up too, though, like what I've really learned recently is, so I went to the Humane Society Gala this summer.
Okay.
And I watched them raise $175,000 in 40 minutes.
Holy shit.
Like, they showed one sad video.
Yeah.
And after that sad video, they were like, all right, we're going to start with our most highest bidders, and we're going to start at $25,000. And like 3 people raised their hand. They were already at $75,000 in the first minute.
Yeah.
And I was just like watching this, and in my mind was just exploding, because I've worked in healthcare for so long.
Yeah.
And then, so translate that to, since then, I have been to a stroke gala. I have been to a Parkinson's gala.
Okay.
And I've been to an MS gala.
Okay.
Combined, I've maybe seen them raise $60,000.
Really?
So it's like, you watch the Humane Society and like what people will do for animals.
Yeah.
And just pouring money into the foundation and stuff like that. And then you have these and unfortunately right now we're on this wave of just where, Generation X is, the boomers, they're just, it's coming, this wave of
really,
for the next 20 years, that population will be the biggest population of our,
to be in advanced care.
To be in advanced care, but just also they outnumber. Like, they outnumber they outnumber Generation X. They outnumber millennials. They outnumber because, and they're just getting older. And it's like, it is truly like we will help we'll do whatever we can for these animals, but it's like, no, I'll give you a little bit for stroke, I'll give you a little bit for MS, or it's
because it's harder to, well, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily harder to pitch people the idea of like helping other people, right? Because you see it like there is something about like pets or cats, dogs, like they're compared to human beings, they're like supercharged on like the innocence scale. Right. Because they're like, well, they're just existing. They have no, and also there's a certain feeling of like, well, they can't really take care of themselves in this world that we've created for them. So it's like, you feel like it's your responsibility. Whereas with people, like, and I'm not saying this is the way it should be. I'm just saying, like, I wonder if that's what it is people, people just don't care about other people as much.
I would totally agree on that one. I think it's the lifespan too.
Yeah.
Like, when you get a dog or when you get a cat, mm-hmm. There's maybe 20 years. Okay. Like, this is going to be it's going to be part of my family, but like, if you don't ever go see a 90-year-old cat. There's no, there's a reason it's called dog years. It's like, you got to enjoy these years because 1 year's worth 7 in human life. And so I do think it's there's an ending coming with people nowadays.
Just feels more immediate.
Yeah, it feels more like, I gotta love this thing now because in 5 years this dog could be gone. Like, and you look at like my grandmother. I remember thinking she was 100 when she was 60.
Yeah.
And
I totally get that.
She didn't age from the age of 60 to like 90. She looked exactly the same. And she was healthy.
She was just grandma.
She was just a force of nature, and she was just going to be there. Mm-hmm. And I guess and I do think you're right. I'm terrible at the guy on the corner or the person on the corner holding a sign and like pulling up. I'm just, to me, and maybe working at U of L is what made me callous to that. Or just getting kind of berated by, like, when you would walk down there and you would, like, I had one guy that would tell me the same story 3 or 4 days a week for a couple of years to get money. And I was like, finally I looked and like the story was terrible. Like, my daughter's in the ER and they're not going to let her out unless I get some money for her medicine. Yeah. He told me that for 2 years.
Like, dude, I work at the hospital.
I looked at him like, after about 2 years, I was like, man, your daughter's been in there for 2 years and you have not gotten her out. I really feel bad about it. But like, you start hearing those stories and you just become numb to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is funny though too, like when you don't do a job where you're out in the community and like you go see people's homes, that's eye opening too. Of
like social work.
Social work. Social workers are not paid enough in this world. Case managers, social workers, they are not paid enough in this world because
absolutely
they are. I mean, number one, they have heartbeats and they care. Yeah, more than anybody else when it comes in the health industry, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Allison used to be a caseworker for 7 counties for a couple of years.
Oh, and that's even, then you're getting into mental health and stuff like that too, which is even,
absolutely.
And that's even, I mean, and that's, sometimes that becomes like, I don't understand it. Yeah. So I don't really understand it. So I put my head in the sand a little bit of like, I just, and that's like these people on the corners, they're holding up signs. Like, the social worker will look at them and say, that person's like 5 bad decisions away from just being a normal person in society. Yeah. Like, what 5 things probably happened to that person to get them to where now they're holding a sign saying, need some help. Like, and they're willing to do it for hours. Yeah. And, and daily. Like, if you go around Louisville, there are certain spots where you're like, there's a one-legged woman in front of Oxmoor. She's been there for years. Is
that right?
Yeah. There's a guy with a dog over off of Papa Level. There's an older guy off Preston. Like, and I do think like that. I like talking about what people will, kind of back to what we'll donate, what we'll give our money to. Yeah. I'll give my money to the Humane Society because dogs and cats are being mistreated. But like, if you truly saw the way some people lived, and it opened your eyes to they're living this way because they just don't have the means to live any other way.
Yeah, and I think another part of that is like thinking about like, because like what you said about they're five bad decisions away from living a normal life. Like I think we underestimate like just how important our like support system is, for like our friends and family and being able to rely on those people. Like very well could just be, these people were in a bad spot and they just didn't have anyone there to help them, or at least, weren't able to provide them the help that they needed.
Yeah. But even help help is so relative.
Yeah.
Like help could be just the fact that you answered the phone when that person called.
Yeah.
Or you reached out with a text like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, "No, you're going through something." Like that text right there could be the text that keeps that person from shoving 10 pills in their mouth.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it. It is, and that's what's funny though too, is I think the way we are now as a society, like podcasts and everything, like conversations. I think that's why I love podcasts, is I like to listen to conversations. I like to have conversations.
Yeah, same.
And I think the iPhone killed a lot of conversations because it turned into text.
Yeah.
And then, and texting so much easier, send a funny meme and, it's or an emoji and it's like, all right, my job's done. I don't have to communicate anymore.
Yeah. I'm definitely that guy. Like, my mom gets so mad at me because I'm like, I'd never call her. I'm like, well, I mean, we could text. I sent you a text. I'm like, I sent you 3 texts this week. What are you talking about? Huh? I'm a good son.
My mom, I love my, it's funny. Like I've gone through, this has been 2024 has been a year for me.
Has it?
It has been.
I have no idea, man.
It has been a year.
Real quick, before we get started, I do want to hear about that. No, you're good. You're good. By the way, welcome to the time zone, everybody.
Take 2.
Yeah, take 2. We had to re-record this. We found out the podcast. We were probably like 10 minutes in, and we found out that the podcast recording device was not on.
Those 10 minutes were amazing, by the way. And you guys we're never going to get those back. We cured a couple things, saved some people.
So welcome to the Talk Zone, everyone. I want to introduce my guest here. This is I met him through Improv 502, our level 2 class. He was one of the very first people I ever performed improv comedy with live on stage. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Steven. Is it Steven? Steve.
It depends on which family. My mom's family, I'm Steven. My dad's family, I'm Steve.
I see.
I answer to both.
I feel like you go by Steve, though.
I go by Steve.
Steve Zeller, everyone.
I do. Thank you for having me, Adam.
So pumps? Are you the pump guy, or is that
no pumps?
Zeller pumps?
No pumps. Zeller. No, I wish. Definitely would have been a different
one recreation of what we said before.
Would have been a different childhood if I would have been, and not related to Fuzzy either.
Damn.
If I just had an O in my name, I feel like I'd have way more money.
Yeah.
My family, so we had a hardware store down on 18th and Hill.
We're just gonna do the bullet points.
Hardware store 18 on 18th and Hill, west end of Louisville for 90 years.
Yeah, that's so wild to me.
And it was great truly for our family, it was amazing. But as far as like having generational wealth that you can pass on, that's not, it was a great business that was great for the families at the time.
It sounds like it was small business in the sense that like the small business used to be like a real thing, that like a middle-class family could just have a business and they just did a thing, and it's not necessarily going to make them rich, but it's going to take care of them.
Right. And so it's funny, like, really quick story. They had at least 2 hardware stores, like national, like big companies come in and put a hardware store right next to them.
Really?
One guy even came in and told my grandfather, "I'm gonna put you out of business in 3 months."
Wow.
And and they were a big store, not like a Home Depot, because those have only come around in the last really 20 to 25 years of being like huge chains.
Like
it was like an Ace Hardware. There was a big one called Levy's that was a big one here in Louisville.
Okay.
And it came in.
Those guys are gone.
And they're gone. Well, it's just because you're either a small, like a do it best, so you're a small community based hardware store.
Yeah.
And you're in more of these like West Ends, or like you're in these older houses, and they need very specific items for the house.
Oh,
that
interesting.
Home Depot just doesn't, like the big, they call them box stores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get like old pie. Like you just can't find the stuff that you do at these smaller places.
Okay.
And the smaller places normally have staff that understand your questions.
Right.
Home Depot, a lot of times they might have, sometimes you might run into the kid though that he's just starting and he doesn't know what what you need.
We've all seen that scene in like King of the Hill when he's at Megalomart and he's like, I know more than you.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So
yeah. did you work in the hardware store with your family, or
so,
sounds like you took a different path?
I definitely took a different path. I truly did think about it when I was 18 years old. But there wasn't really a spot for me that summer. So that summer I decided to work at Philip Morris, which was the cigarette company.
Hell yeah.
Down on 18th. My dad worked there for 30 years, so he got me a job loading cigarettes.
Okay.
And I did that job for, I would say the summer going into freshman year of college. And that was a job where I realized I need to go to school and I need to do something else because this is not what I want to do for 30 years.
Yeah.
And
that's how you get into like organized crimes.
That's how you get into crack. And that's how you get into, there's a lot there was just, I worked with one, and the people I worked with were so nice, but it was just like one guy looked like Jose Canseco, looked like he was on steroids, huge muscular guy.
Yeah.
But we would start off the day and he would, be normal. And by like 9 o'clock, he'd have his shirt off and he'd be like itching his chest and he'd be sweating. By the end of the day, he'd be bleeding from like where he was like scratching himself.
Oh my God.
And finally I looked at him one day. I was like, John, do you think you're allergic to cardboard? Like at all? And he goes, I don't know, man. It's just rough in here when it gets all hot. And I was just like, and to me, and again, it comes back to conversations. There weren't a lot of conversations. And I was definitely round peg, square hole. Like my dad was, he was in management at Philip Morris. So like I was low level. So everybody underneath him came in to get a shot at me while I was working.
Boss's kid coming in here.
So I just graduated high school and I'm driving this like 1988 Camry. Like it's got 200,000 miles on it. But like I'm working with these four guys and my boss comes in and goes, hey Zeller, would your daddy buy you for a graduation a Porsche? I'm like, thanks a lot there, fella. That's really going to help me out with these guys. Like, no.
Tell my dad on you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That guy doesn't work there anymore. He got fired.
Well, they moved. Actually, they closed everything down here and they all moved to Richmond.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that how you got? But you got into healthcare. It sounds like
got into healthcare. I got so I went to Trinity here in Louisville. I had guidance towards healthcare, like in high school. Father Zettel, who does all the like college counseling, occupational therapy was like the number one like up and coming job at the time.
Okay.
And
what is that exactly? Occupational?
So occupational therapy is where physical therapy works on, just in a nutshell, physical therapy works on mobility, strengthening, even isolate injuries like shoulders, knees, hips. They work on pain. Occupational therapy works on what we call activities of daily living. So dressing, bathing, getting on and off the commode, getting in and out of the shower.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you really help somebody where physical therapy is going to help you get around and move.
Yeah.
Occupational therapy is going to help you get back into the world.
I see. So it sounds like it's a more critical for helping people live.
I would love to think that, but in the health world, it's definitely not viewed that way.
No.
We're there more to help you. Oh, that's the guy that's going to help you wipe your ass again, but that's the guy that's going to help you go up and down the steps. So PT definitely gets, they get first billing pretty much everywhere.
I see.
And then there's speech therapy. They're always the smartest people in the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Speech therapy is always the smartest in the room.
Yeah.
OT, we're kind of like a traveling road show. You never know what kind of personality you're going to get with an OT. PTs are like pretty
the improv of the therapy world.
Kind of like they're like PTs are hardcore normally a lot of times. Like, can you watch a video of somebody being hurt?
It depends. It depends on how badly they're hurt and how permanent it seems like it ended up being.
So do you know the Joe Theismann video? I know that's
No, I don't
old and
think so.
dated.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, with Kevin Ware from
Okay.
U of L, the U of L basketball player where the bone came out of his leg.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
I know nothing about sports.
well, okay, Jackass the movie.
yeah.
Okay, so some of the stuff
Oh,
that like
Steve-O?
yes, so okay, so like PTs will watch the Steve-O videos,
Yeah.
and they'll watch them in slow motion, and they'll go, his knee should not have gone that way, and then they'll zoom in on the knee, and they'll go, watch, here it comes, oh, and like where an OT will be like, I can't watch it one time,
Yeah.
you know, like I feel anytime a guy drops on his nuts on the guardrail, you're like, I can't breathe now for the next
Yeah,
5 minutes. That's
same.
an OT. PT will rewind it, watch it, and like tell them what they did wrong and
Okay.
how many months of rehab they're going to need
So
afterwards.
PTs are serial killers. Is what
They
you're
could be
saying.
there could be some psychos there, but they're all. I mean, you know, at the base of it though, I think everybody's in it to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just different personalities go to those different kind of.
So wait a minute. Let me ask you this: do PTs? And I'm sure, and maybe this is just just based on what you've heard. I'm sure there's been some sort of like chatter about it on the side. But like, do you think physical therapists have any sort of feelings about chiropractors, or do you think it's the same thing?
Oh no,
I just not the same
they
thing.
definitely have feelings about it. There's and it really it's honestly chiropractors, PTs,
Yeah.
occupational therapists. There's not like one everybody's different.
Sure.
So you can go to one chiropractor, and that chiropractor might use a lot of the same methods that a physical therapist is going to use.
Yeah.
Same, and vice versa. There's a lot of PTs that will crack your neck, crack your neck, air quotes.
Yeah.
Manipulate you is what they're going to do.
Okay.
And that, they're going to put you in different positions. They're going to manipulate you, but they're also going to teach you exercises to, okay, we've got this mobility. Mm-hmm. This is how you keep it. You
Okay.
have to do these motions to keep that.
I see.
And there are some chiropractors who will do the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of, sometimes the chiropractors they'll just adjust you and say, all right, go on.
Right. Yeah.
And, now I'll see you 3 times a week forever. And, and that's how they maintain their business and their cash flow.
yeah. Absolutely.
And sometimes it's truly, some of them only use what they call modalities. So there's have you ever seen the Theragun, like the massage gun that looks like a jackhammer that people are using? So there
Absolutely.
there's
I've heard those can mess you up if you put them on the
you
right.
don't know
on the
what
wrong
you're
spots.
doing. Yeah. Don't put it on your crotch. It's not pleasurable.
That's why I can't have kids.
Instant vasectomy. It's definitely
Adam, your counts are a little low, buddy.
and your nuts are really swollen. What have you been doing? Well, I've been hammering it with the Theragun for a while, and I don't know.
A chiropractor told me. He said he was a chiropractor anyway.
I truly think it depends on, and they're all different.
Yeah.
There are great chiropractors out there, and there's terrible ones. Just like there's great therapists out there, and there's ones that they're just kind of, they're just there to get a check.
I see. Okay.
And I think that's with every kind of job in the world, but
so you don't feel like physical therapists indict chiropractor as a practice.
no. I mean, I think we all see that I think there is a role for everybody.
Okay.
And that's me. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there that have that feeling of why are they even in business, or why we don't need to have them.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's physical therapists that look at occupational therapists like that, and vice versa.
Yeah.
but I
but
said,
clearly they're all here.
clearly they're all here.
Yeah. They all have a purpose.
And people are getting older, and the biggest, the largest part of our population is going to need all of us to help them through the next 20 years.
You were talking about that earlier, and I was interested about that. The idea that all of the largest generation in our population, boomers, are getting older, and were you saying the implication there is about just needing to take care of them, or a
little bit of everything, not just take care of them, but even think about housing. Think about, were your grandparents ever in a nursing home?
No, my grandparents died way I would say all of my grandparents died generally at a younger age. Like I think my grandpa died. I mean, he was maybe 70 something. I don't think any of my grandparents made it to 80.
So I guess my question would be like, so there is a stigma when it comes to the word nursing home.
Okay.
Okay. So like it's not used anymore because it was a thought like you were putting your family member in a home.
My mom worked in a nursing home for many years.
And so now they're called subacute rehabs or skilled nursing facilities.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
a lot of them have living situations tied into them that are almost like a resort.
Oh.
So you can start, so let's say you're in your mid 60s and you're really just kind of tired of cutting your grass. You're tired of, maybe you and your wife are just tired of living in the same house. You want to go live in a community somewhere.
Yeah.
So you start out in this like resort kind of cruise ship community.
Yeah.
Where you have your own place. They have meals. You go to events and activities. As you get older, you can move into another wing where maybe there's some assisted living where you can have people come in and help you with certain things that you need help with.
I see.
But you're still living on your own.
Yeah.
And then, from there, then you can move into like, let's say you started getting dementia or you started getting Alzheimer's or something like that. Then you can move into like their memory care ward or their long-term care wards.
I see.
So it's kind of like a progression now to where it used to be like a destination of, oh, we got to put, we can't take care of grandma anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to put her in a home. Now it's more of people are making that choice earlier in life of we're going to start here.
Yeah.
And probably end up here.
Slowly transition.
But that's not a cheap transition, unfortunately.
I was going to say that because that is familiar to me. My Allison's grandmother lives in a facility that worked very much like that, where, when she was younger and had more, we'll say, was more gosh, how do I say it?
She was more mobile. She was more independent.
She was more independent. That's the way to phrase it. Yeah. And so so it ended up being very much like that, where it's like just like more like an apartment, and certain things were taken care of, but she could go to events and then slowly, as she became more dependent, would go up to the more, those wings that require more attention, but I know her as coming from a wealthy family, and so I just assumed that was just a really nice facility. I didn't realize that was kind of what the trend was heading towards.
Well, there's a trend of it because it is a nice facility and they are money makers.
I see.
But unfortunately, kind of like what we were talking about earlier when it came to the Humane Society versus stroke, and what we'll donate money to animals, but we won't donate money to humans.
Right. There
is such a barrier to getting a lot of people in these places because, a relatively nice, like a good price for one is like $2,400 a month.
Oh my God.
That's a good price. And that's forever money. That's until you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's a good price. Like some of these that are uber nice you walk into and they literally look like a cruise ship, and they they can be anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 a month.
Wow.
So you're talking to like you're
and the idea is that's like it's room and board, it's food, it's everything, right?
It is but a lot of times
also, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even like a super nice apartment, like a super nice 2-bedroom apartment in Louisville right now is $2,000.
Yeah.
Paying $2,400 for what you're, it's just, unfortunately, it's unattainable for 50% of the population out there. And like, imagine and there's no
especially
funds.
if you don't have like any retirement.
Right. Pensions aren't around anymore. They don't have, there's no such thing as pensions really anymore.
No.
You might be lucky and have a federal job that you just made the cutoff for a pension.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're in charge of your own. You better have a 401k, you better have a 403b or a Roth IRA that if you're not putting money away for yourself, it's not going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's unfortunate because when people do get there, and I have friends that are social workers that's their job is to help people find, my mom and dad can't take care of themselves and I can't take care of them. what do you think we can do? Where do you think we can get them into one of these really nice places?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's like an honest conversation, and you have to have, like, I've listened to them on the phone. Well, let's talk about their retirement. What kind of money do they have? What kind of, what can they afford? And then you start telling them, like, you start telling the family members prices, and the family members like, we can't, we can't do that.
Not reasonable.
That's not reasonable.
Yeah. I'm actually, you got me thinking about this right now, because I know for a fact my mom has very little, if any, retirement, and she's kind of banking on the idea that, like, she's like, well, I'll just be on Social Security. It'll be fine. And it's like, yeah, but like, that's like maybe going to give you just like a basic level of living, but you're not going to be able to afford any additional care.
Right.
It's just going to be, you're living with me.
Well, and honestly, like, I give talks to caregivers, and I think anybody over the age of 40 that has a family member that's in their late 50s, early 60s. Yeah. If you're not thinking about the next 10 years, you really are going to be in for a rude awakening. Yeah. Because
I totally understand that.
Because life can hit. So, I mean, my dad retired at 52.
Okay.
Had his first stroke at 52 and a half.
Oh my God.
And was an eye-opening.
Would you consider that relatively young?
Super young.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, he was Superman. Yeah. He was bulletproof, and then all of a sudden, now he can't use his left hand very well. He limps a little bit. He looks weak. Like, you ever, like, first time you ever see that your dad is not invulnerable is when you really start realizing that, oh man, like, life is not fair and life doesn't care.
Yeah. Totally get that.
But like, if you're not in the set, but he kept his facilities. He's very, he passed away 2 years ago. Okay. But he had 3 strokes. I was about to ask
if he was still here.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast we can do on him, because he, you just talk about somebody that he wore his body out. Like, he truly, like, whatever you could do to wear a body out, he did it. Okay. But he was mentally, up until the day he died, he had his mental facilities. He was sharp as a tack. Okay.
Which to me, that's the ideal.
That is. But the sad thing is like, I've seen it just working in the hospital over 20 years. You've seen it where, let's say, your family works at Ford. Yeah. Everybody works at Ford. They're a Ford family. Yeah. They have no idea what's going on in a hospital. Why is there this TV monitor that's got all these squiggly lines on it? They don't understand any of it. So then, maybe their mom had a stroke at 55, and now their mom can't talk because the stroke affected her brain. So the mom can't make any decisions. Yeah. So now the family has to make decisions. Right. And they're thinking, well, we're in a hospital, and they're going to have our best interest in mind, and they're going to put wherever they tell us we should send our mom. Yeah. They're going to take care of her. And then the mom ends up in, I hate to use the word dump, but might be in kind of a dump situation because she doesn't have good insurance, or they don't have good,
So the hospital's just going to send them where they think they can afford.
Well, where the hospital sometimes uses an easy button. What's easy, you hate to say it, but like these case managers and stuff, they have 300 beds. Yeah. And those beds, they got to get those people out. They've got to get them discharged. Yeah. And so they can bring 300 more people in and fill these beds back up.
And this is where your role comes
and that's part of my role is I will go in and, if therapy's seen a patient and they feel like this patient really needs to go to an acute rehab. Yeah. When they get discharged, then I'll get a referral and I'll go in, talk with the family, tell them about our facility, and try to talk them into letting us rehab their family.
See. So really your job, I don't know if that's the only aspect of the job, but it sounds like, in a sense, you're almost like a case manager because you're facilitating.
Case manager, honestly, it's a little more sales too. It's like sales and marketing. Like you go in and you're pitching.
So when you told me what you did, I was thinking about it like a nurse.
So we do have nurses that do the job. Okay. We have nurses. I think the great thing about my team that I'm on is there's 10 of us, and we have nurses and therapists. Okay. And we kind of work together when we look at a patient. Yeah. Because nurses and therapists look at patients totally different. Yeah. Therapists are looking at rehab potential, and nurses are looking at more of the medical conditions and what's going on and what it's going to take to stabilize this patient.
More immediate.
More immediate and just more of the what they call comorbidities. So, maybe the patient broke their leg.
Yeah.
But the patient also has diabetes. Patient's grossly obese, hypertension. So you have to add all these factors in.
Yeah.
And nursing looks at like the whole picture.
Okay.
Where rehab a lot of the time is looking at the injury. Yeah. And how do we rehab the person from the injury?
That specific thing.
So like the way working together, you kind of paint the best picture for the patient.
Okay.
But so when when we go into a room, we're really selling our facility. We're trying to get you, tell you what you're going to get when you come there.
Yeah.
And, it's in Indiana. So I work here in Louisville, and you would think people would have to take a plane and, they're crossing an ocean to get to Veterans Parkway in Clarksville, Indiana. And it's like, I'm like, it's just as close as any other facility. You just have to cross the bridge. Like, that's it.
I literally just heard someone from here be like, I hate being on Veterans Parkway. And it's just so funny how and I play into this about how people from Kentucky just love to just not be in Indiana,
Oh, I'll take Veterans Parkway over Dixie Highway. And I'm from Shively is where my family's from.
Yeah.
To get me away from Dixie. I hate Bardstown Road at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. No, thank you. I'll take Veterans Parkway all day long. You get into Bardstown Road at 5 o'clock and you're heading out to Fern Creek.
Yeah.
You might as well just take a lunch, and that's when the fast food happens. It's like, oh, look at that, Rally's is open. I'm just gonna go get me some fries for this drive on the way home.
The traffic at Little Caesars is way better than this road.
I don't think, but okay, Little Caesars, real quick. Sorry, sidetrack.
Please.
Do they not have the $5 hot and ready anymore?
I think they do. Yeah.
Is it fine? I don't. Somebody. So a buddy of mine. That's one of his favorite things, and he's like, "Well, they got an all meat or a 3-meat one for $8." He's like, "But I don't think they have the $5 hot and ready anymore."
What?
I know.
I knew about the meat $8 because that's like it's like a little better,
right?
Well, we'll have to investigate this.
I was gonna say.
Are you saying I should know this as the fast food expert?
Well, you are the fast food expert. I've listened to the podcast before. You know destination, location. You might even know the lady's name that works behind the counter or the guy's name. So
as far as I know, they still got it. I mean, we don't go to Little Caesars that often. Only when they have the pretzel crust. Allison, she goes nuts for that pretzel crust.
Really? Did you ever have Hungry Howie's?
No. What is
Hungry
that?
Howie's? So when I lived off Frankfurt Avenue, there was a Hungry Howie's there.
Off Frankfurt?
Yeah. Okay. So this is down by the Krow Ghetto, like the Dirty Kroger. Everybody knows the Dirty Kroger. And if you say Dirty Kroger, 8 out of 10 people go, "You mean the one on Frankfurt Avenue?" Yeah, I know. Or Brownsboro Road, Lower Brown. Yeah, we know exactly where that is.
Yeah.
So there was a place called Hungry Howie's, and you picked your crust, and they had 10 crusts, and they were and they all had butter. It was all some kind of soaked in butter kind of crust, but they were good. They were good.
When did they close?
Oh,
I used to live on Frankfurt, but it was a couple of years ago.
Oh, so I lived off Pope Street, and this was back in '96.
Okay.
So this is a while. So Hungry Howie's was definitely there then.
Okay.
But the crust would be they have a whole wheat crust, but they would soak it in butter. Once it was done, and it was so. And then they'd brush butter all over everything.
Just a one more layer.
You were just you would eat it and you'd be like, I don't know why, I'm just not feeling good right now. But
I've had I've gotten Spinelli's at 4 a.m, and I'll get the garlic butter, and I've never seen this at any other pizza place, but it's literally it's just the concentrated butter oil from movie theaters.
Oh,
it's literally just concentrated that, and it's not good. I mean, I still ate it, but because you gotta slick that bread up so it'll go down.
I've gotten introduced to the cauliflower and gluten-free crust lately.
Derby.
Well, all of it. So pretty much Boom Boss has it. Parlor has it.
Yeah.
And actually, it is. It tastes like thin crust, and it's it's just a good thin crust pizza. But
absolutely, and I've had it. It's good. Yeah.
The older you get to, it's kind of I don't know if I need all that dough.
Yeah,
I don't know if have you ever eaten a Dioreos?
Oh, I love Dioreos.
Have you ever tried the Gibbon Challenge?
No, I have not.
Don't. I'll tell you, it will ruin pizza for a while for you.
I haven't gotten that depressed yet that I've like, let's do the Give It challenge.
We did it. I did it probably 5 years ago with some really good friends from work.
See, you got to do it with pals.
You have to do it with friends.
You can't do it by
yourself.
yourself.
Man, you got to pick your friends too, though. Like you really got it. Like you got to have people that want to eat.
Yeah.
And there was 3 guys on the team that I was like close friends with, and we needed a 4th.
Okay.
And we couldn't find somebody. So finally we saw this guy. I'm not going to call him out, so don't shame him, but I will tell. When I asked him, I go, "Hey man, do you like pizza?" And he goes, "Oh, I can hurt some pizza." Okay, that was his answer. Oh, yeah. I can hurt some pizza.
That's how he led it.
So like he's telling me pretty much I'm doing speed bags of pizza. Like, I'm like I'm training to hurt some pizza. So I'm like, this guy's number 4. We've got this. So we go and they bring all of our coworkers come to watch us, and they put this pizza down, and it's as big as the whole tabletop of the pizza.
Oh my God.
Or the whole tabletop is the pizza.
Yeah.
And they are they have just you can tell all they've done is open packs of meat and just slapped it on there then thrown cheese on top of that and then just done it all around this pizza. The crust is 2 inches. It sounds like they did it
angrily,
I guarantee,
trying to punish you.
I guarantee they were mad making it. They're like, this thing sucks just putting it in the oven. And all you had to do was eat 2 pieces. If all of us ate 2 pieces of the pizza, we do it. It's done.
You eat all of it, or you
if you eat all of it, it's free.
Okay.
If you don't eat all of it, it's like $80.
Okay.
So I had a whole plan. I had a whole I ate all the toppings first.
Yeah.
So
that's the move.
So totally ate all the toppings first, and then I'm working on the crust, and I look over, and the guy that can hurt some pizza is fake pantomime eating food. He's gotten to the point, and he's maybe halfway into the first piece of pizza, and he literally has a fork and a knife, and he is air cutting.
What?
And he's just fake eating, and I'm almost about to vomit. I've eaten so much packaged meat, and I look at him, I was like, "Are you fucking fake eating pizza right now?" This angry, from out of nowhere, I'm do you know what I'm doing to my body as we speak to win this stupid competition? And you, who can hurt some pizza, are fake eating this pizza right now. Oh, it was so funny. I've never that was
you, dude.
Dude, that was the only time my body gave me the choice of I will throw up for you right now. Or if you lay down, you're probably not going to wake up for 2 days.
Oh.
And I was like,
make a choice.
Make a choice. And I was like, I'll take option A. And it was, my body just got rid of it. And it was immediately, I was like, I feel so much better.
So wait, I'm curious. How did he even defend himself? I mean,
he didn't. By that time, there was no, there was no, that by that time. Well, and honestly, after because my other two friends were on the same attack mode as me, and they were doing it differently, but they were definitely we had the meat sweats. I mean, they were going at it. And then you look over and he's just faking. And then once we all realized it, it just kind of killed the momentum. You're like, okay, there's no way that
I mean, the fact that he was even using a knife and fork, I mean, that should have been a red flag right there.
He was going to hurt it. He was going to hurt the pizza. He was going to stab it. He was going to slice it.
I'm sorry. I've got reservations later. I forgot. I double booked.
So that Gibbons challenge at the time had only been done by 2 groups.
Wow. Okay.
In Louisville, and both of them were videoed.
Yeah.
So we watched the video, and all 8 guys that completed it. So 2 teams of 4. They were all 6 foot tall, skinny dudes.
Okay.
And I was like, and I was bigger at the time too. I was like, oh, we've got this.
Yeah.
We can absolutely, you can't put something in front of me I can't eat.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and I was like, you've definitely put something in front of me I can't eat. I can't do that.
I made the same. Well, actually, before I say that, let me just ask this: did you guys complete the challenge?
No, God, no. It was fake eating. He asked for a to-go box. 20 minutes. He's like, can I get a box just to take this home? Steve's paying. Steve's paying the 80. Bring him the check. Box? Yeah, bring him the check. I'm gonna take this home though. I'm gonna have it for lunch for the next 2 days.
Wow, what a piece of shit.
I just think, honestly, I think what it was is that we were doing something for work, and I don't think he wanted to say no.
Oh, okay.
You know, like once he realized he had kind of backed himself into this corner, I think he was looking for the he was like, you know, is there any way I can just get out of this plane? Can I just jump out and not be part of this team? So
I can hurt some pizza.
I'll know. So the look on his face too, I was like, damn, he looks like he could hurt some pizza. Just the way he said that, he looks like he could hurt some pizza.
If by hurt you mean never call back, then yes, he definitely could hurt some pizza.
Like hurt its feelings? Like, you know.
I thought you wanted this.
That crust makes you look fat. I don't know. Like, is that what you're thinking? I can mentally hurt some pizza. Now, physically, can't do shit with it. But like, you're no Papa John's, that's for sure.
I've definitely seen, I think I did that myself when I was a kid. I was in a pizza eating contest, and for Ham Days, which is a celebration in Marion County.
Oh, yeah.
And
talking about country ham?
Yeah, country ham.
Oh, saltier the better, or no?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's like you put it in your mouth and instantly your mouth goes dry. You're like,
starts sizzling in your mouth. Yeah. These Pop Rocks? No, it's salt from the country ham.
Can I suck on the gristle a little more, please?
But because I was a chubby kid, back in the day, and I was like, and now but I'm not a kid, so that's maybe why I said back in the day. I thought like, oh well, I like to eat. Of course I can eat in a competition where, that's if I can do anything, it's eat.
I'm built for it. That's yeah.
I'm built for it. But what you don't realize is like, no, it's not really about. It's not about you. Like being fat doesn't equate to I can eat a lot of food very quickly. Really, it's like, no, you just eat all the time throughout the day. It's not that you can eat a lot of food in a short amount of time. It's, and so I think what it is like, it tends to be skinnier people because those people have faster metabolisms.
Right.
So they can just, they can just burn through it.
Let me go on a tangent and ask you a different question.
Yeah.
So I was a chubby kid.
Okay.
So what was your philosophy on, and I'll tell you mine first.
Okay.
The first person that was going to make a joke about my weight was me.
Okay.
That was my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Like I was going to bully me before I was going to be bullied when it came to like being the chunky or chubby kid.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's where a lot of my sense of humor, like self-deprecation as a kid, like I was my nickname, I nicknamed myself the fat kid.
Really?
Like that was I had it on hats, I had it on like that was my
you have to own it.
That was exactly like like if you own it, then you can't hurt me with it. Like that was the biggest thing, because you would be, they would make some fat joke, you'd be like, that's really where you're going? Like, no, let me tell you really how fat I am, or that was. Yeah, and like I didn't know, were you that way or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was always, the class clown, or at least trying to be. And I had some kid on the bus started calling me Lunchbox, which is a reference to Jay and Silent Bob. Silent Bob, he called him Lunchbox, right? Because he, was full of food all the time, And so,
which, by the way, not really a bad nickname. I would have called it's kind of fun. Lunchbox is top 3. I would put right behind Fat Kid. Lunchbox would have been a great.
It's certainly better than Tons of Fun.
Yeah, lard ass or anything like that. Like Lunchbox, you could be like, I'm Lunchbox,
But I own that. I was like, I'm Lunchbox, and so people would just call me Lunchbox in high school. And I had, when I was in high school, that was like the era of LimeWire, like peer-to-peer, like ripping, like pirating music,
right?
And so I would have just all these like mix CDs, and I call them the Lunchbox mix.
You
pass
owned
them
it
around to people. Yeah, exactly. So, 100%. That's exactly, and I think you're absolutely right. That's definitely where my sense of humor comes from, is the self-deprecation aspect. Because it's like, if I can just be a goofy, if people don't take me seriously, then there's nothing for them to criticize potentially, because they're like, oh well, he knows he's a fucking piece of shit.
If they can, honestly, I think it's more of if they realize they can't hurt you.
Yeah.
With that, Of course, then the physical bullying would come too. Like that was
yeah.
that was like the physical like I would do that. Like I hated. I had guys that would. Ugh, yeah, you definitely have those.
The one thing for me that would really like and I'm not a violent person at all, but I mean
Here comes the butt, folks.
The one moment that would just put a rage in me that I could not contain, that I would absolutely, fight back for, would be like if someone, and it's so sad that people did this in high school, but like, people will come up and just grab my, nipple, just do like a honk,
Right. Oh,
like one of those, and that's like, oh, I'll kill you for that. I'll kill you for that. That is such a, that's physical assault as far as I'm concerned, and it's just the fact that people think that they can do that is just the worst.
Oh, see, mine was a little more physical than that.
I hope that didn't happen for you.
No, well, no, mine was. I mean, I had like, and I've said it as an OT. I used to. So my specialty was I worked from the hand to the shoulder.
Yeah.
So broken hand, broken shoulder, gunshot wounds to the forearm.
Holy shit.
Burns.
Yeah.
You name it, whatever you could do to your arm.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Okay.
I had two names, and I told my coworker this little Indian lady I work with, love her to death.
Yeah.
I've worked with her for 18 years. We worked side by side together.
Okay.
And I wrote two names down literally the first 2 weeks we started working together. I go, if either one of these people show up and they have a broken bone in their arm,
yeah,
I'm going to take them in that back room and I'm going to lose my job. I'm just letting you know that right now, because I will go torture them for what they did to me when I was a kid.
Oh my God.
And truly, like, and they are still on the list.
You're
like if I would tell you, like if they it's two people that I'm like what they did, like the bullying they did, and like the mental
you
torture.
were physically assaulted.
Oh yeah, physically and mentally, like terror. They were older. I was, and that's where like my age, I was fine with like because you could be the class clown, you could be like self-deprecating, and everybody that kind of grew up around you, they all knew it. But like the older kids, like, and I lived in like. So our neighborhood was just separated by like literally it was like a group that was 3 years older than the other group.
Okay.
And that group that was 3 years older, they terrorized us.
Yeah.
That was their summer was. It was, I'll never forget, it was the summer between my 5th and 6th grade year. And it was like, that was going to be, and they were going into high school.
Yeah.
And it was like, we are going to physically terrorize you all summer
So they
long.
live near you.
Oh, I mean, literally, I can point, I literally can probably tell you their address right now. And,
they live in the same place?
No, but I could tell you where they grew up. Like,
okay, I see what you're saying.
I've seen both sets of their parents within the last couple of years.
And this probably might, explain why that maybe happened to you and not me is, I grew out in the country where I just didn't have a lot of neighbors. So I was super spread out and just not close to a lot of people. But you said if you grew up in Dixie Highway.
No, I grew up off Westport Road, but my family's from Dixie Highway. But I grew up off Westport Road in a subdivision.
You grew up in Louisville.
Yeah, in Louisville, in a subdivision. Yeah. It was, I mean, I grew up with, I can almost name them 10 kids that were my age.
Okay.
That was the group I ran with.
Yeah.
From the time I was in 1st grade until high school.
So you were probably just always out.
We were always outside playing, games that you can't play now.
Yeah.
And
Russian roulette.
Well, people did have, that was like, you would play guns. Like you would play, okay, you're going to be the bad guys. We're going to be the good guys. And like, we had one guy that his dad had guns. Oh my God. So he would bring out, like we would play with real guns, but they wouldn't be like loaded. But but you're a dumbass kid and you don't really realize it. Or you go to the store and you get a cap gun, which they don't sell anymore either.
Right. I had a couple cap guns.
Oh yeah. Like
they don't sell those anymore?
No.
Oh damn.
Or they're totally a different color where it doesn't look like a gun.
Yeah.
Like you could buy, literally you could go to Target or Kmart, which was even more, and they would have an aisle of guns. And you could like it was all different kinds of guns, and there were some of the cap guns were really they're revolvers that look like revolvers.
Yeah.
So
I know that in the 80s there was a situation where a child was killed by the police because he had a toy gun and they thought it was real. And after that, they federally mandated all toy guns have to have like an orange tip on them or something, so that it's very clear that they're toys.
Yeah, I mean, I had several that were like heavy metal, like cap guns, and I mean, they were legitimately 2 or 3 pounds.
Holy
that you
shit.
were like that in somebody else's hands. That would probably look like a real gun.
Yeah.
And you would, chase your friends around the neighborhood with it, and it made a sound like if you had the caps in there, it would pop.
Yeah.
And so that was the.
I love that. That's just the way we used to play. Like we just shot each other all the time. It's like whatever. It's not a big deal.
Oh, BB gun wars. Did you ever BB? Oh, you lived in the country, so I'm sure you probably had like pellet and BB gun wars.
Yeah. Not wars, but okay. So I was a bit of a unique case. I was very sheltered, and I was more of an inside play with your video games all day kind of kid. So I didn't. I mean, my cousins definitely did that for sure. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
what's the age difference? I'm 48. How old are you?
34.
Okay, so 14 years.
Yeah.
So our world.
I'm a 90s baby.
So I'm a 70s baby.
Okay.
But the differences of our worlds too. When it came to, I was playing like literally in the 8th grade, going into high school.
Yeah.
We were still playing Ghost in the Graveyard, and Nintendo was there.
Yeah.
But it was nothing like you didn't spend days on end playing video games. You would play video games for an hour or two, and then you'd be outside.
Well, they were so difficult. I mean, I've played some of those games, and you'd lose your mind if you really tried to spend all that time playing
You
those
did.
games.
And it was just, and I could do things that probably your generation, even for you, 14 years later. And I can tell having when I raised my kids, I did things. My mom, it was get out of the house.
Yeah.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Get out of the house. Do not come back in the house because I'm cleaning, and I don't want you in here. You and your friends go ride your bikes.
Yeah.
And come back for lunch and be home for dinner.
Yeah.
And everything else was you were with a group of kids and you were riding your bikes, and your bike was freedom. If I had a bike, I could go wherever my legs were going to take me. I could go.
Wow.
As long as they could get me back by lunch or get me back by dinner.
Yeah. Are you biking on sidewalks or where are you biking?
It just
at?
really depends.
Yeah.
Sidewalks, and living in Louisville, you could neighborhood hop.
Yeah.
And really, you were just going from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood, and you could make your way to where you'd be okay, for the next 2 miles, we're going to be on the main road.
Yeah.
Or the next 2 miles, we're going to be going up Westport Road on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back through this neighborhood, and we'll get to, so it was, but I mean, you go on 10-mile bike rides, in a day. You'd be,
Holy shit.
your mom would be out shopping, and she'd see you somewhere, and she'd be like, "What are you all doing out here?" Well, you just told us to go out,
We're out. We're doing it.
I don't know how it was for you, but even for my kids, the paranoia.
I was going to ask, you have kids, right?
I do have kids.
Okay.
One is 25 and one is 19.
Okay.
And the paranoia, I don't know when the parent paranoia came around.
Yeah.
Of everybody's going to steal my child.
Yeah.
That became a real thing of you got to play in the yard. You got to play where I can see you. You gotta that was a reality for me with my kids, and it's a terrible feeling.
Do you think it came from Walmart having those big huge bulletins of all those missing children and just having to look at them as you're leaving the store every time?
Well, I'm from Louisville.
Okay.
So it's one name in Louisville.
Okay.
Ann Gottlieb.
Oh, really?
Ann Gottlieb was my age, second grade.
I don't know anything about this.
So I think it was Bashford Manor Mall.
Okay.
And she got kidnapped.
Really?
And
she was young?
I don't know. She was same age. So we were in this second or third grade, I think, when it happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And everybody I was, I'm Catholic. So Louisville is a little town anyways.
Yeah.
But Catholic Louisville is a super little town where everybody knows everybody. It's 2 degrees of separation. It's not 7. I know him, then I know 10 other people.
Yeah.
And so She was.
I just had a Catholic Louisville guy on last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably could pick it. Like, if you tell me his last name, I could probably have two
Maybe
like things
Nick
to
Tennell. Nick Tennell. I think he went to St. X.
So I'm a Trinity guy. I guarantee all it would take is what year did you graduate?
And he's my age too. So
yeah. Well, so you're all similar ages to my cousins. Okay. So I would have, yeah. But back to Ann Gottlieb, like, that was where I think the paranoia started. You can, like, your kid could get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And
here's a real world connection.
Here is a real world
that
connection.
You guys know.
Yeah, like I had two girls in my school that knew her. Oh. And they would talk about it. I knew her. And you'd be like, okay. And then
can I ask, did anyone did we find her?
I don't know if they ever did find her, honestly.
Wow.
Like, I just remember that was the name. Like, that was the name that, just like your parents would tell you need to eat your food because there's kids starving in China.
Yeah.
Like, Ann Gottlieb you know what I mean? Like, that was the name for us.
And so do you feel like as a parent now you became paranoid because of situations like that?
I think that the internet and having too much knowledge. I mean, we were so naive.
And access.
Sex offender registries.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't know if you ever watched Dane Cook. One of my favorite Dane Cook bits is where he goes on his zip code and he puts in the sex register, like the sex offenders registry.
Yeah.
And he goes, and all of a sudden it just explodes around my house and they're just all around me. And that's how you felt like as a parent. Because once you had a kid, you got on that site and you're like, okay, where are the red circles? Where are the yellow circles? And how far are they from my house? And then that set the perimeter for where your kids could go. And
that's kind of ironic considering he's like 50 something and he just married like a 20-year-old girl.
That doesn't surprise. I mean, does that really surprise you? I mean, he was. You talk about somebody that was exploded, and then the industry just chewed up and spit out.
Oh yeah,
was him because that vicious circle. Is probably one of my. I think that's one of the. I even hate to say it, but like top 5. Yeah. Just standalone stand-up hours when he's in that circle and he owns that crowd.
Yeah.
And he's telling, even there's a guy named Jacob in the stands that he goes, Jacob is like walking up the steps and he just runs off the stage and gets right behind him. He's like, hey man, where are you going? Funniest shit. I mean, it was just so funny. And I was like, that to be that funny and that spontaneous. Yeah. And
people forget just how white hot he was.
Oh,
at that time, you were like, oh, top 5 stand-ups of all time, Dane Cook.
Oh, he was probably ahead of Chappelle at the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And I think he used MySpace. He was one of the first ones to truly use that kind of medium to get his name out there.
Yes. Absolutely.
And did you ever see, they did a traveling show with him. Did you ever see that? So he did like a summer tour with 3 other comics.
Wait. Was David Tell one of them?
No. Bobby, this guy is now finally starting to get the recognition, I think. And his name's Bobby. I cannot think of his last name. It's not Bobby Lee, but
Bobby Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bobby Kelly's on there. So Bobby Kelly and Dane start together. Okay. And Dane explodes.
Yeah.
And you can see the jealousy.
Really?
You can see where Bobby Kelly's like, that should fucking be me.
Oh,
like throughout the show, and they go like it really like there are some and
was he fat then? Because I mean he's generally like a large comedian.
He was a little bit recently. Bigger. But he wasn't. But they showed pictures when they were younger, and he was like, he was like body built, like he was a good looking dude.
Okay,
and. Now he's doing like the comedy thing, and you could just tell, like you could see, and I'm sure, like, not being in that world, but I'm sure that world is just full of jealousy.
I would think, yeah.
But you can, I think that's what I loved about the improv class that we did is how much we enjoyed watching each other. Yeah. Like, truly, I enjoyed watching everybody else do amazing.
Yes.
I loved when I was up there too, but like to watch the other people and what they came up with, and like that was such a nurturing environment.
Yeah, it was.
Where I've done some open mics when I was younger and stuff like that, and I just remember how toxic.
Yeah.
It was just so toxic to be like to sit back and just. I mean, nothing positive was coming out of anybody's mouths that were behind, like that were watching you, and and they had their number, and they knew they were going up there next.
Yeah,
nothing positive was coming out of their mouth. They wouldn't laugh. They'd be like, "That's terrible. This is trash." You know, I mean, just and you're just yeah, but, oh God, just and I remember just being like, God, this is like. That such like where improv is like a family, like stand up is you and you alone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like once you're up there, like it's all, I mean, you might only be up there for 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes, like that's all on you, buddy. And I will say, I don't think I'm in the stand up scene enough to really know one way or the other. I think for me, it's what I've noticed more than anything else is you know, there are a couple people here and there who just that I've met who've been super supportive and but a lot of the people, like the tight knit, like actual community, are very much like they play like a wait and see approach, where it's like you just keep doing it and they won't say anything to you, and then they're just going to wait until they feel like you're consistently good, and then one day they'll just tap you like, hey, I want to start booking you for shows, you know. But it seems to me like generally the scene now is pretty supportive, but also very much like, hey, we know we have a bunch of people who are all doing this, and we never know like who's going to drop off after like the third set and you never hear from them again. So it seems to me like they try to like not invest too much into any one person until like it's like they pick them. It's like they wait for the rose to bloom, and then they're like, ha, snip, and I take that
really
rose. Yeah,
it's fun. Well, being like, so in the 90s when I was just starting, I've told you this story before, but I worked at Standard Country Club.
Okay. And
the owner of the Comedy Caravan was a member at Standard Country Club.
Yeah, I was fascinated when you
and
told me this.
He would, it's the first time I knew what cocaine tracks under the nose was. Didn't know what that was. But he would bring, like, literally, we would always have, I could go to the Comedy Caravan every Friday night because he always left tickets for the kids that were working.
Yeah.
But like he would always bring the comedians on Friday to play golf.
Okay.
And I'm talking everybody who was anybody at that time in the 90s that were big in stand-up, they came through the Comedy Caravan.
Yeah.
Like they just did like all the names.
They were like the only club in town, right?
They were. And they were, I mean, all the names. Like you name them. I mean, from Kinnison was there, went back in the late 80s. Tom Sobel, who was the owner, he found Roseanne Barr. Like he was, Roseanne Barr like credits him in the book in one of her books for actually giving her her start.
Really?
Yeah. So that's how.
And he owned the Comedy Club?
He owned the Comedy Caravan.
I'm sorry, Comedy Caravan.
And I'm pretty sure that's what it was called back then too. But like he would bring the comedians, and the comedians were the most miserable people. They just were. They were like the one guy that stands out that was not miserable was Jeff Foxworthy.
Really?
Jeff Foxworthy was like the most humble, like he, number one, he was wearing cut off jean shorts, and like we had to buy him like a golf, like he had to buy clothes because they would not let him on the golf course.
No way.
He showed up in literally like cut off jean shorts and like a tank top. Yeah. Like totally fitting the, you might be a redneck if like persona. And
so he was the real deal, huh?
He was like he was making fun, like he was just wanted to talk to people. You could just tell he liked people.
Yeah.
And most of the comedians didn't like people.
Right.
They liked
like introverts.
They just were not happy. A lot of them weren't happy.
Yeah.
And like I think it's funny with podcasts, and I think what you saw, and I think you see it now, I think there's a much more nurturing comedy world out there because of podcasts. But I think a guy like Joe Rogan is, whether you like him, whether you don't like him.
Absolutely.
I think he was saying it from the beginning. All comedians need to do each other's podcast. All comedians need to be promoting each other and don't undercut each other. Don't cut each other down. Like I think he, like that message was one of his, and like what he kind of does for guys that he likes, you know,
for sure.
And the way he pushes them, I think is something that you did not see back then. Like you didn't see other comedians. Comedians did not want each other to do well. They would rather them go up and eat shit, and they'd be like, "That's the best." I watched him eat shit for an hour.
Yeah. I've heard him tell stories all the time about how terrible the Comedy Store used to be, and how like, you know, Eddie Griffin would just go in there and just bump everybody and just do 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, hey, like, you know, you're about to go up and like you get a tap on the shoulder and it's, you know, I'm gonna go do a couple minutes and work out. Like Martin Lawrence would go up for 3 hours. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, now I get to go up. There's 2 people left.
So I don't think I knew this. You've done stand up before.
I've done so well. That is very loosely saying. Like I did a couple open mics.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is back in the late 90s. And
Okay.
like it was one of those things I didn't tell anybody I was going. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Like it was like, I'm going to go because I know I'm going to eat shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see if this is even something. Because I've always loved comedy. Making people laugh is truly the number one thing on... it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do is sit there and laugh with people.
Yeah.
Truly.
It's like a superpower. It's like immediately get people to like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I agree. Like that. So this girl that I'm dating, one of the arguments, I was watching this YouTube short, and this guy on the YouTube short said, if you can make a girl laugh, you can kiss her.
Yeah.
And
there's definitely logic to that.
Well, it's funny though. The girl I'm dating is like, I totally do not agree with that. She's like, I've got a lot of funny friends. I do not want to kiss them ever.
Also, don't try.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think it is like I think it is a way to get to people. I'm one of those people. If I want to be liked.
Yeah.
I don't, you know.
Yeah, same.
I don't
Who doesn't
like.
want to be liked?
I think there's people out there that don't care.
Yeah, really?
I think, well, I mean, those are probably the most successful people, the ones that just don't give a fuck. And
yeah, that's true.
You know.
The sociopaths are just, it's just.
You know, you watch these guys on, you watch them and they're like, but I'm a person that it would drive me nuts to know that 5 people didn't like me.
Yeah.
Like that would eat at me. Like you could have 100 people that are like, I love you to death. You're such a good friend, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, but those 5 people don't like me for some reason. And I don't know why.
You're like, why don't they like me?
Why don't they like me? It would drive me nuts. But I do think humor comes from that. So I've always been, so kind of back to your question,
mm-hmm.
I've always been drawn to comedy. I've always been drawn to stand up, to sketch shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
same.
Really, improv there wasn't like a scene in Louisville for improv.
Yeah.
Back in the late 90s. You know, my friend Chad, who was in our class, we were going to go to
Chad?
Oh, Chad and I.
Okay.
I've known Chad. I've known Chad.
When you were talking about PT, I was wondering about that because that's what he does, right?
Yeah. So he was in PT school the same year I was in OT school.
Okay.
So
cool.
Actually, we went to school together. I was going to be a PT, and they told me I was not PT material. So I went down the street and became an OT, and Chad became a PT.
Yeah.
But we were both going to go to Chicago and go to Second City. This is after. And Second City had become really big because of, of course, because of Saturday Night Live, but you were coming off of Chris Farley for us was our John Belushi.
Yeah.
You know, so Chris Farley, and that was his path. He was the funny fat guy, but he started at Second City, and like you would watch some old like videos of him from there. And I remember Chad and I both thinking we could do that.
Yeah.
We could get on stage and play like that.
That's where the motivational speaker sketch came to fruition. He developed that character there.
Right.
And then Bob Odenkirk wrote the sketch.
Well, and those guys, like those names right there, like that, like, did you ever watch Mr. Show?
I've seen some of Mr. Show. I watched it later in life.
So
I haven't seen all of it though.
Like geniuses.
Yeah.
David Cross and
very smart comedy.
Some of that comedy, it was so ahead of its time in some ways.
I remember the sketch where it's trying to decide whether or not to make change for a bill, and he just keeps going up the chain, and he gets to like the CEO of like all of the supermarket stores, and he's like, yeah, okay, sure, and then he goes right back to like this literally like 20 layers just to like, will you change a $5 bill? Yeah.
Did you ever see Indomitable Spirit?
No, which one's that?
The one where maybe I did. It's the band of handicapped people. And like one of them is like David Cross is just a head, and he's like like those skits to me at that time.
Yeah.
Because Saturday Night Live I always thought Saturday Night Live was safe.
Yeah.
Like Saturday Night Live was
Yeah.
what my parents watched. You know, my
Yeah.
parents thought Saturday Night Live was funny.
Yeah.
Like for me, In Living Color was
Oh yeah.
In Living Color was where I was like, that my parents won't watch this because they don't think this is funny, but I
Right.
think this is hilarious.
Right.
Like Handyman, Men on Films. Like
Okay.
you couldn't like it's so funny, like the sketches that they did. I remember watching Handyman, like, there's no way this show's gonna be on TV next week.
Yeah.
This is absolutely, but I was cracking. It was just so wrong. It was so funny, and it
Yeah.
was, but it was like they weren't making fun of him. That was part of it too. Like they were making this guy like a true superhero. He just happened to be handicapped, and it was like, you know, I don't know. It was like you couldn't do it now because now you'd be canceled. Truly, you couldn't do that character now. But
Yeah.
at the time, you're like when you're watching it, it made you like you're like, I don't know if that's like totally right, but it is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the same thing with Mr. Show. There were so many things on that show that were just they rode the fence of you could either be really offended by this or
Yeah.
you could see the humor in it
Yeah.
and realize that that's the humanity of it is what we're looking at and what's funny.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not making fun of the person. We're more making fun of just
The situation.
the situation.
Yeah. I missed In Living Color. That was past, you know, I was probably 3 when that show was on. But I did watch I watched Mad TV.
Okay. Mad TV,
That was
Bobby
big.
Lee.
Bob, yeah, both.
Stewart.
Oh my God.
Stewart's one of the I think
Yeah.
Stewart is one of the best characters of all time that does not
Same.
get talked about.
Absolutely.
Him and his mom is Stewart. That
Yeah.
and all the things that he talked, like when Stewart just starts throwing jabs at his mom.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's so funny. I mean, you're
Yeah.
just like that's like Will Sasso came off that show.
Oh
and that dude,
my God.
absolutely.
He's funny today. Like he does these
Jesse Ventura.
podcast interviews. Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Yes.
in the Baja.
I brought Minnesota to the Baja. I call it Baja Soda. Like, and he'll just do it for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, how are you still doing this character?
He's just, but
It's
I don't,
inspirational.
I don't think he does. And what's funny is like, I think I guess he's in movies, he's in shows, but I don't think it's,
Yeah.
I think he probably does more voice work
Yeah.
where there's probably a ton of money for somebody like that in
Oh my
voice
God.
work.
That actually reminds me that we were just watching. I went back and dipped back into the Ernest catalog.
Like Ernest Goes to Camp.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I watched Ernest Goes to School. And by the way, these movies are just
Awful.
they're so bad. But one of the bullies in that movie was Will Sasso, and he probably gave more to that role than anybody else in that movie. I mean, he really did a great job, honestly.
Was there a song like? Did Ernest sing a song in Ernest Goes to School? Because when he sings a song in Ernest Goes to Camp, and I almost cry every time.
Really?
It's called "Man, I'm Glad It's Raining."
Oh,
And he's singing it, and he's like, "It's raining," because now you can't see the tears coming down his face. And I
Yeah.
remember I do remember like watching that, and like that's a really sad song.
I really want to go back and watch it. I haven't seen any of those movies since I was a kid, and that was the first one I was looking for was Ernest Goes to Camp, but it's not available right now on streaming. So I got to figure out how to.
Oh, you need a
How to
super
watch
box.
it.
We've talked about this already. You need a super box. I'm gonna go home and look. If it's on there, I'm gonna send you a picture of it.
Yeah, and then send me a link. to one of those.
Ernest.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Because I don't know how much more time you have.
At least 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm actually going to see the Transformer movie at 4:20 today.
Oh, hey. Okay.
Yeah. So 4:20.
Let me know how that is. I'm kind of curious about it.
Well, the other hot trash that they've made, like the last 6 I'm such
Yeah.
a Transformers nerd. Like,
Really?
oh, dude, those were. I mean, that was was my
growing up in the 80s.
that
right?
was my
Yeah.
jam, dude.
Yeah.
My best Christmas. Like, I remember.
Yeah.
I got Optimus Prime from my grandparents. So
Okay.
the way Christmas went for me for 45 years, it started at Calamar at my grandmother Zeller's house.
Okay.
I would get my first toy on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Every year.
Oh, that's a nice
Okay.
move. Yeah.
And-
I tried to get that going in my household, and my mom was like, nope.
Well,
fuck
so
you.
their present was always first.
Okay.
So, and I remember, and my mom was always good at like giving my grandmother an idea of something that I would really like to
I
kind
see.
of get Christmas started.
Yeah.
And I was a psycho. like I was a psycho Christmas kid of like, if I knew there was a present under the tree with my name on it, we were getting the presents somehow. Like I would help serve. I would like clean dishes. I would, I would do whatever it took. I was mopping floors, cleaning up, like pouring drinks, whatever I could do.
Gotta get you another scotch.
Exactly. Glenlivet, are you like some more? Okay. How about some more? All right, I'll take this food. Like they'd sit down with their plate and I just grab it like, you're done. And like, throw it out just to get in there and open it. I'll never forget opening Optimus Prime. And man, I stayed up all night. I mean, I rarely slept on Christmas Eve because I was just that much of a psycho about like Christmas.
I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's the most exciting day of the year.
I sat there and literally in my room to the point of like my sisters, because I was the one that like my parents would put a time, like my mom and dad would be like, do not come to our room till 8:30 in the morning. Do not knock on the door. Do not, Santa came, but don't come asking until 8:30. So 8:30 was like so my sisters who were right next to me, they knew I was like, and I'd be biting at the bit.
You're raring to go.
Oh yeah. So, but that year, like they were like knocking on the door, like, you okay? Like, what's going on in here? And I was like, no. And they were just playing with Optimus Prime. Dude. It was so.
Did you stay up all night?
Put stickers on it, and then like like I had everything.
You just transforming it.
Dude, I had Lincoln Logs. I had built like a whole freaking. It was awesome. Like it's one of those things like you remember of like.
Was it die cast too? Was it metal?
Oh yeah. Dude, it was. Yeah, it wasn't plastic. Wild. The first plastic one was the airplane.
Oh really? Okay. The jet or
the jet.
Okay.
Not Megatron and not Starscream, but I can't think of the jet.
Was it Jetfire maybe? That's the one. But I think that was a spaceship though.
This was the F1. It was the F-16.
Okay.
I can't think of the name. Like, that's terrible that I can't think of the name.
There's no way I would know.
That was the first time I remember being like, oh, this is kind of like this is a little. Like it's huge, but it's also like this isn't as heavy or anything. Like this isn't heavy duty like Optimus.
This isn't real Transformers.
What is this? Plastic? But like the first, I actually did like the two Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, me too.
I like the first two.
Yeah.
Third one was he in the third one?
I think he was up through. I think the fourth one was Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, as soon as they started putting Mark Wahlberg in, I was like, these are getting absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it gets over.
And and they're so long, and I'm like, what are we doing now? Like, it's just
that's how I felt too.
I was like, it's just terrible. And then they brought in the the way they ruined the dinosaur robots, because I remember that at the time
sure,
too.
Yeah.
And
was it Dinobot?
Dinobots, but they were terrible. Like the way they brought them all in, I was just like, this is awful. I love the fact they used the actual original cartoon voices.
Yeah.
Still, like in that guy's Optimus Prime's voice. Yeah. I still do love that, but.
So as a 90s kid, I also love Transformers. But specifically for me, the one that had a special place for me was Beast Wars. So that was the 3D, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it looks awful right now, but to me, I like it. I think it has a certain aesthetic that I find appealing and nostalgic.
So you don't even probably know about the GoBots. Do you know about GoBots?
That name sounds familiar.
So GoBots were the generic Transformers.
Oh, okay.
And they were called GoBots. And like GoBots are what your grandma would buy you from Walgreens. And it would be almost a Transformer. So it'd be like instead of a semi truck, it would be like a box truck. Like a U-Haul truck. And
I think I had one of those, but it was a rock. It was a rock that turned into like an alien.
I think that was from McDonald's. That might have been straight out of a Happy Meal. But so that was
well, let me ask you this, because I've seen the movie, like the OG movie from the 80s. How did you feel when Optimus Prime died in that movie? Spoiler alert.
I think I liked it more that Bumblebee cussed.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bumblebee says, damn it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're like, oh, this is adult shit.
And I was like, oh, my God, Bumblebee just said, damn it. G.I. Joe and Transformers. Those were like my two.
Okay.
Those were, I mean, that was that right there, that and He-Man. And you didn't realize how like homoerogenous He-Man was until later on in life. Yeah. But like at the time you're watching, you're like, man, that guy's really strong. And then you go back and you watch like, this is really gay. There's a lot of gay undertones going on in He-Man. Why is he behind the tiger and pumping him instead of riding him? I do not understand this. And why does his hair? Why does he look like he's got a Dorothy Hamill haircut?
Battle Cat with mega pumping action.
Ramrod, or what was the one guy's, like, literally they had a guy,
I think it was Ram Man.
Ram Man. It's even better, Ram Man.
Yeah. It's gonna ram you. They remade that show in the early 2000s, and so I got to grow up with He-Man too because of that.
Was it a little more like manly, or did it kind of stay with the?
It was well, the writing was much better, I'll say that.
Was it?
It was the stories were actually like you could actually see, it was actually like a cohesive like things were happening. You're like, okay, I can see how this is progressing from point A to point B. But yeah, I mean, it was super muscly dude. And I don't know if it was there's certainly that element for sure, 100%. But it was more about like the cool tech shit, like the magic and the robot, they've like they're like towards the last season, they're like, oh, he's got mega battle armor, it's like just because they rolled that toy line out,
Well, and you didn't understand as a kid, like why they were doing, but what fascinates me about today, that I think where we are today compared to like shit that just would not have gotten over when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I love, like, I love the fact that you can be a nerd and be active and be into all this stuff. And like, because truly when I was growing up, if you were really into Star Trek, or if you were really into like, you got labeled. It was a label. It wasn't like, hey, he's really into that, and that's kind of cool. It's like, he's really into that.
Yeah,
might want to put him on a list.
That guy's a nerd.
Nerd was a definite negative word.
Yeah,
growing up. Now, where I think nerd is just like I'm a nerd about that. Like, I love it so much that I'll nerd out on that.
It's way more normal than it used to be.
Like watching did you ever see the documentary on bronies?
No, I don't think I did.
Fascinating on just where, because my sisters had My Little Ponies. I never, like, that's not something I ever like thought of.
Yeah.
And then now it's a whole subculture where they have conventions like where thousands of people, like not just girls, but they talk about the cartoon and what the cartoon does for them. And like, I do think that's so awesome.
Wait, are we talking about the people who are into My Little Pony, or are we talking about the people who dress up as...
Well, that's
like animals.
No, that's like furries.
Furries.
Bronies are like bros that are into My Little Ponies.
Yes, and I've met a few of those guys.
And they are, and they know every minute detail, and it's like the sad thing is you're like, obviously they were drawn to this cartoon, for whatever reason, but kind of the awesome thing is it's like. It's kind of crazy that cartoon got them to where they are now. Like, they whatever, like maybe they didn't feel like they fit in anywhere, but then they, where you can find, like, now you can fit in anywhere. Like when we were kids, if you didn't fit in, you just didn't fit in.
Right.
And like, I mean, we all have those. I mean, I've got 5 names I probably can name right now of just guys that you're like, you look back on and you're like, I feel bad.
Yeah.
Because I feel bad because I didn't want to be that kid, so I made fun of that kid.
Right.
Like, I jumped in when everybody else was doing it because I was going to protect myself.
Because you don't want people to think you're
But even though that kid, you'd be like, he's kind of into Transformers, and I am too, and I'd like to talk about it, but I'm not going to because I'm not,
You can't tell anybody.
You can't, you could. Yeah. But now it truly is.
Which is really really the tragedy there is this kid's just being himself.
Right.
And it's like, it's like, in a way, that kid was courageous because he was just like, I don't know, this is what I like. What do you want from me?
Well, but that was not an attitude of the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, that is an attitude now. It's what I like.
Yes.
It's what I'm into.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's amazing. Like, I truly, I think my kids, my son's 19, dresses like Paul Walker from Fast and the Furious, and it absolutely cracks me up. Like, I'm just like, what are you wearing? And he's like, and they're into anime.
Also, like, he's been dead for like 20 years now, right? Like,
no, he hasn't been dead 20. But dude, Fast and the Furious, he'll live on forever.
Yeah,
he will always be Brian O'Connell from Fast and the Furious. He will always be that good-looking guy that, like, kids are like, I could wear baggy pants and a white t-shirt and pull that off and freaking low cut Chuck Taylors just like that.
And to circle it back, like, a lot of that's because of the internet.
Right.
Like you can just find your audience now instead of just being like, oh, I'm the only guy I know who likes this. It's like, no, I can go out there and go on Reddit and I can type in, whatever interest that I have, Fast and the Furious, and you'll find the Fast and Furious subreddit. And you're like, oh, it's 200,000 people that are followers of the subreddit. And then you're just like, oh, look at all these topics of people talking about this thing that I love.
Then you end up at a Comic-Con. Then you end up at like a convention. You're at the Louisville Convention Center, like dressed up. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
But I do think I think that, and I know my parents. My dad never understood. Like, he just comes from the generation where he's like, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Like tattoos, they don't get tattoos.
Yeah.
Just because tattoos was like, they got tattoos. You got to watch out.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. Where now, like, if you don't have tattoos, people almost look at you like, dude, what's wrong? You don't do tattoos?
Well, I guess you're not an artist.
I guess you don't like to express yourself.
Yeah, I totally get that. I tell you what, I think we're gonna wrap it up. If you're cool with that,
yeah.
This has been great. I think the dog just came in here. I'm like really worried that she's gonna come in here and just destroy our whole life. So, but Steve, thank you so much for coming on.
Anytime. I'd love to come back. That was awesome.
Absolutely, you're very much welcome.
Yeah.
And thank you. And you guys listening, take care.
See you in level 3.
Woo.